We've been saying for many years that gay adoption and surrogacy should be illegal. Now everyone else seems to be catching on. This is an abomination. We've been saying for many years that gay adoption is an abomination. I've never heard anybody say that.
Wow, we're just diving right in.
We're diving right in.
Matt Walsh totally went off the rails about gay adoption.
Oh, yeah.
Let me just...
I think he stayed on the reservation, is what I think.
I know something about adoption and foster care. I had 2 foster siblings in my house almost my entire life, and one of them we adopted. One of them that never left, stayed with us. And well, let's listen to what Matt Walsh has to say.
Sometimes I read your tweets and I'm like, Matt Walsh, ladies and gentlemen, spinning people up. Here's one. We've been saying for many years that gay adoption and surrogacy should be illegal. Now everyone else seems to be catching on. This is an abomination. We've been saying for many years that gay adoption is an abomination. I've never heard anybody say that.
Wow, we're just diving right in.
We're diving right in.
No, it's the gay adoption, certainly the rage in Washington, D.C., because all of them have adopted a gay assistant. Oh, wait. That's not what he's talking about, right?
No, Pete Buttigieg adopted a gay identity, and it was an abomination.
So Matt Walsh is a conservative Catholic. Keep that in mind. That's what the church teaches. No in vitro fertilization. There's no surrogacy. And there's no gay adoption. The Catholic Church doesn't like gay adoption. My guess is because they want to be in charge of turning all the kids gay. It's just more. So according to Matt, it's just more disordered, more confusing for the child to have them live with gay parents instead of living in a home. Like not a home, but like in an orphanage. I can't imagine anything. I mean, it's like, I guess prison would be worse. But as a child, to live without parents.
Would constantly be shifted from foster home to foster home. That's the head guy from Jimmy from Goodfellas that did the Lufthansa heist.
Yeah,
that's why he turned out like that. He was molested and passed around through foster homes.
So he says that Matt Walsh claims children living with gay parents are worse than being in foster care, and because at least in foster care, they're being abused by an upstanding member of a religious community. Am I right? Come on.
Yeah.
Catholic Charities, they run a lot of those foster cares. So this is more of a Coke versus Pepsi argument, if you ask me. So here, Glenn Greenwald, actually, who was he was gay. Him and his husband adopted, I think, 3 children. And it just goes without saying that that I would rather have my kid, if I had kids and I died, I'd rather have Glenn raise those kids than have them go to a foster home or go to an orphanage. It doesn't even, it's not even a question.
Were you sure, Jimmy, you wouldn't rather go to a third world orphanage?
I have a brother who lived in an orphanage. Believe me, he would never want to go back to the orphanage. I have a sister. Here, let's listen to what Glenn has to say about this.
This is a question of Matt Walsh, and Tucker Carlson asked Matt Walsh about this, and Matt Walsh answered in a, I think, remarkable and shocking way, a horrific and morally twisted way, about whether it's better to leave children lingering in orphanages and poorly managed shelters where they're there with 20 other kids and a staff of 2, or foster care where they're just passed around every 8 months to some different family. And then they're just expelled the minute they hit 18, armed with nothing, no skills, no education, no support. And a lot of them end up on the street. The boys end up selling drugs. The girls end up in prostitution. The girls end up in prostitution because they have no other thing. It's really a dark and horrific existence. These are kids who have no chance at life because for whatever reason they don't have parents who can or will raise them. And they linger in these places. It's not like they're all a big line for adoption. So there's a huge number of kids who once they reach the age of 3 or 4 have almost no chance to be adopted. And so Tucker asked Matt Walsh, is it better to leave them in these horrific places than to at least have a stable, loving set of parents who are gay? And here's how he answered.
Okay, so I'm not on X all that much, but I do read you. And sometimes I read your tweets and I'm like, Matt Walsh, ladies and gentlemen, spinning people up. Here's one. We've been saying for many years that gay adoption and surrogacy should be illegal. Now everyone else seems to be catching on. This is an abomination. We've been saying for many years that gay adoption is an abomination. I've
That's how bad gay adoption. It's an abomination. But blowing up kids is still cool, which is why Matt hasn't quit the Daily Wire over Gaza.
Or any other thing that's blown up kids.
Here we go. There's more.
Anybody say that?
Wow, we're just diving right in.
We're diving right in.
Gay adoption is an abomination. So when I say we, I mean like so-called social
I've
conservatives.
never heard them say that. I've never heard anybody. I think I agree with it, what you said, but I don't think I've ever heard a single person say that. Everyone seems to be afraid to say that.
Yeah, most people are. That's why I think. But so-called social conservatism is that's why it's not popular even on the right.
Now, as I said, this debate doesn't exist. Florida was the last state to have a ban on same-sex couples adopting back in 2014, 2013. It was actually Matt Gaetz played a key role in having.
I wonder if Matt Walsh has ever talked to any former kids who lived in a. Have you ever even talked to anybody who grew up in a adoptive home with gay parents, and would they rather grow up in an orphanage or be passed around to foster home after foster home after foster home after foster? Do you imagine that as a child? Nothing more important that you need than a stable, loving family unit, someone that you know. So I know a guy who used to work in an orphanage, and he said, and they were like the troubled kids, and he said you can tell the kids that were going to make it and the kids who weren't. The kids who were going to make it were the kids who felt like someone cared about them, and the kids who didn't have anybody who cared about them, they were gone. So it doesn't matter. So I have all this firsthand experience, not only living with the two adopted kids, but I've had known firsthand people who worked with kids. So, and Glenn Greenwald actually is an adoptive gay parent. So let's hear what he says.
That repealed because his father was a very influential state senator, Republican state senator, and he convinced his father that this ban made no sense. It was unchristian to not.
It's unchristian to force a kid to live in an orphanage as opposed to living in a loving home environment. You really wouldn't want your kids to grow up in Glenn Greenwald's house? Really? That seems shocking to me, but here we go. It sounds to me like that's not social conservatism. That's someone who's fighting the gay inside.
Give kids an opportunity to have parents, have support, financial support, familiar support, emotional support. And so Florida was the last state to abolish its ban on same-sex couples adopting. It was like in 2013, 2014, so years ago. And now all 50 states allow same-sex adoption. Almost every country in the democratic world does. I think every country in the democratic world, actually. So you did hear Tucker saying, I think I agree with you. But here is where it kind of escalated.
Can I ask you, is there anything more hated on the right than social conservatism?
I don't think so.
So you could say, like, I think we should drop an atomic bomb on a bunch of people and just, like, kill them all and their kids. And people are like, well, that's a really good idea. But if you're like, actually, we should, like, save some kids, then they hate you. What is that?
Yeah. Or we should.
Okay, let me just, I just have to interject here because I just want to have, I need to emphasize what actually is going on here. Tucker saying and Matt Walsh saying, we're here to save the kids. We love the kids, the children, like the abstraction, the children.
And they mean by saving the kids, keeping them from a loving home. That's what Matt Walsh is saying. That the way you save a kid is you keep them from having a stable family environment. If it's gay, that's what he means. Okay.
And yet, if you ban same-sex adoption, which they're saying they want to do, you have tens of thousands of kids, 100,000 kids who aren't being saved or being destroyed. Because they're going to just linger in orphanages, shelters, and foster care forever. You're not saving those kids. You're consigning them to a life of utter misery and deprivation permanently by depriving them of a family. Even if you think like this is a perfect family. And I don't think that. But even if you think, oh, it's ideal to have a mother and a father raising kids in a heterosexual marriage, to say that it's preferable to put kids on that path. And I'm somebody who has adopted kids. I understand what shelters are, what orphanages are. We adopted our kids from orphanages. I've done reporting on this. I know the horrors that go on there, the damage does. The kids just, again, everyone who raises kids knows that the thing a kid needs most is a loving, stable family. Parents who look over them, who will care for them, who look over them, who intentionally love them, protect them, put them on the right path. And in the name of saving kids, they're actually destroying kids by saying one of the paths you have to getting a family, the very improbable path to get a family, we're going to take away from you because we want to save you by leaving you in all these hideous places. We're not going to adopt you. We're not going to raise you. We have no interest in sacrificing to raise you. We just want to abstractly love the children and say we're saving them even though they're destroying them. Here's the rest of this.
So, I mean, it would be one thing if the choice was, hey, a heterosexual couple or a gay couple. That's not the choice. The choice is a gay couple or stay in an orphanage or be passed around to 39 different foster care homes as a child. So it's not like, well, I mean, yeah, if it was between a gay couple and a heterosexual couple, I could see the argument. Well, they should be that's not the argument. The argument is a gay couple or nothing. Or they get wrecked. Okay.
Probably, we should look at the way that human society was structured for thousands of years, and we should probably consider that they were right about a lot of that stuff. Maybe not everything,
Right.
Maybe not everything, but there are just some certain basic civilizational truths that we have moved away from in recent decades. But I don't think there's any good reason to move away from them. And so, if human beings did something a certain way for literally millennia,
You mean like homosexuality? Because homosexuality's been around forever, since the beginning of human beings. You mean like that? So if they did that, but not that, right? So there's no doubt that someone who, it'd be one thing if he had adopted 10 kids himself, him and his straight wife. But they haven't. That'd be one thing. This smacks to me, Kurt, tell me what you think. This smacks to me of someone fighting the gay in his own shadow.
I keep saying Catholic, and the number one feature I notice of these kind of very conservative Catholics is they come off real gay. And that's why, only kind of self-loathing to me, now it could be something else, but to be like, oh, it's going to be even more chaos if it's two gay parents than the foster care system?
What? How? There's nothing more chaotic than that.
What are you talking about? By the way, if they're straight, I got bad news for everybody. There's no guarantee that they're not going to molest the children either. You got to cross your fingers and hope for the best with all of it. So it's weird to just single that out and then say, no, just leave them out loose in the street. Again, Glenn Greenwald's in a third world country doing this. Those kids are it's bad here in America for kids like that. What do you think it would be in Brazil?
Okay.
In every civilization that we know of, it's probably right. I mean, there's probably a lot to be said for it. Again, not in every case, but in most cases. So,
I mean, a lot of this is just such trite culture war stuff that has been resolved long ago. Like polygamy has been a huge part of human existence for millennia. So has rape. So has slavery.
Yeah.
So has
slavery is just a recently thing that human beings got rid of. Right? Rape's in the Bible. Polygamy, all that stuff. So they've done it. So, but that's bad. But because we've done so, that argument that because human beings did it for a millennia, that doesn't hold up. That's just he's just pulling that out of his ass, and it sounds good until you actually think about it.
Even if, from a Christian standpoint, if he's this dedicated conservative Catholic, paganism was done for millennia.
Yes,
Christianity was a progressive change in that in your lore.
Yeah. Okay.
Cannibalism. So as child sacrifice. All these things are found in the Bible. All these things are found everywhere. So it's like, hey, they've done this for 1,000 years. Why would we change that? And of course, he's acknowledging, hey, maybe part of what we should from the past, it's actually bad, even though they did it for thousands of years. And once you acknowledge that, saying that this is the way it was done for thousands of years is no longer an argument.
So let's keep going.
a child being in foster care is far from an ideal scenario. It's very, very sad. A child going to two gay parents, I think, is worse.
Have you ever asked a kid? Have you ever asked a kid who's been passed around from foster care home and abused, or do they want to be in a loving, supportive home with gay parents? Have you ever asked a kid? Have you ever asked a kid, hey, would you rather live with the Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Glenn Greenwald or keep being passed around through the foster care system and abused with absolutely no... The average is they have to move twice a year. A kid to another home, not with different people that they don't know. Okay.
I think it's easily worse, actually.
Why?
It's easily worse.
It's just
why? Because I just got to think about the gays. I'm fighting the gay in my own in my own shadow. That there's no other reason for this. Okay.
or disordered. It's more confusing for the child. Again, neither scenario is good. We don't like either thing, but I don't see.
So what he's saying is, let me just translate this. It's what he's saying is, I'm Catholic, and I think everyone should do what the Catholic Church commands, even if they aren't Catholic. That's basically what he's saying.
Or gay.
Or right. Don't worry about it, because at least here in Hollywood, it's only the straight parents who turn their children gay, so they can walk down the runway like little fashion models. Am I wrong?
Yeah, no, that's right. All the Hollywood parents have trans kids.
Yeah.
The highest amount in the world.
If the parents are gay, they don't even mess with that stuff because they already have enough gay in one house.
Going to, gay parents as an improvement over the what they had before. So
Do we know that it screws kids up, or we just sort of intuitively know it?
No, he's just making it up. So do we know it, or are we just making it up that we know it? That's actually the question. Do we know this, or are we just making it up?
I think we intuitively know, but also there's been plenty of studies done about.
He doesn't cite any studies. That's the interesting thing. He doesn't cite any.
The mental health effects of kids that grow up in these, single-sex, same-sex parent homes. There's been a lot of studies done about it, but honestly, you can look at the studies, people will fact check, and they're there. I don't need studies for this.
I don't even need to talk to a kid who's been tossed around to 5 or 6 or 7 or 39 different foster care houses. I don't even have to ask one.
Have we studied their outcomes? I bet if you compared the two outcomes, that would be the worst outcome.
Well, they have done that actually. They have compared the outcomes, and turns out kids from gay households actually do better. Isn't that weird? They actually do better than kids in orphanages and foster homes. They actually do better than kids brought up in a straight home academically. Did you know that?
No, that's pretty gay.
It's pretty gay, but it's true. Here we go.
This should be intuitive. We just intuitively know it. There are certain things as human beings that we just know. And one of them
is that kids should be left to live without a family. That's one of the things we know. Intuitively, we know a kid would rather live in a place where they get abused sexually and physically, emotionally, instead of being in a loving home where the parent is gay. We just intuitively know that. What the fuck? Do you even hear yourself? No, he doesn't. Because this is all Jungian shadow projection. This is him cutting off that part. This is a guy, I guarantee you, when he was a kid, he watched professional wrestling and got a boner. And it made him uncomfortable. I'll guarantee you that happened. Here we go.
Jimmy, wait, I intuitively know that he's wrong.
I intuitively know he's wrong too.
He's wrong, and it's not just because I don't dye my beard.
Sexually mutilating a child is bad. Another one is that a child needs a mother and father. We just intuitively know that. I don't need any study. I don't care what any academic says about it. I don't care.
He doesn't care, even though he says there's studies out there that back him up. And by the way, Matt Walsh, love both of his movies. I love it. I think he does. Again, I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
I'd rather do that than give it to a gay couple.
I'd rather throw the baby out with bathwater than give it to a gay couple for sure. But I'm not saying, fuck Matt Walsh. I'm not saying this guy's. I'm saying that there's obviously something psychological happening in him. That's what this is about. And I just intuitively I know this. I just intuitively know this.
Well, it's the soy sauce in his beard.
Do you think he dyes his beard?
It looks like
dude, my old joke is he looks like a kid who put on a fake beard to buy beer.
You don't care what academia has to say about this? You have tampered with the forces of academia, and you will atone!
He went to a good school, I'm sure. Academia. Did you go to a high-priced college? These are all people that can't fathom, like, when somebody has nothing. They can't fathom it. They don't think it exists. They don't care if it exists. They intuitively know they don't care.
When he says that it's far from ideal, does he mean it's still better than living in a foster care or in an orphanage when he says it's far from ideal? Do you mean it's still better than Glenn Greenwald's kids have it?
I feel like
I feel intuitively that's not true. I feel intuitively Glenn Greenwald's kids have it way better than kids in an orphanage or kids who have to go to 39 different foster cares before they're 18.
I feel it.
And he goes, it's easily worse to put the kids with the gay parents than it is to leave them in an orphanage. Matt, have you ever heard of Boys Town? You know, the church-run home for boys in Nebraska? I've actually been there.
Really?
Yeah. They made a movie about it starring Mickey Rooney and Spencer Tracy. Anyway, long story short, in real life, they were trafficking all the boys. Did you know that?
Better.
Did you know that? I don't need a study to tell me that.
I don't need academia to fact check me.
And you don't see going to gay parents as an improvement over being trafficked? What? But were you ever in foster care or were you ever adopted, Matt? No. So that would mean you don't know shit about which one's better, I'm guessing.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Glenn Greenwald says, one has to be morally deranged or totally ignorant of the grim reality, or fighting the gay.
Yes to all.
Fighting the gay.
Yes.
Someone you must either be morally deranged or totally ignorant, or got a boner watching professional wrestling when you were a kid, and it bothered you, so you pushed it down. Or ignorant of the grim realities of kids lingering without parents. I believe he actually is ignorant of the grim realities of kids who are lingering in foster care or orphanage. I think that's it. Foster in orphanages, shelters, and foster care, only to be expelled at 18 with no support. To believe that dark hell is better for kids than being adopted by gay couples? Really? So Glenn goes after it, and since Matt Walsh brought up the idea of their studies out there to back it up, you can look it up, they're out there. Glenn did. Glenn said, despite Walsh's claims, studies show that there is no harmful consequences for kids being raised by stable, loving, same-sex parents. There isn't any. But there are millions of kids in orphanages and shelters with little chance of family. Believe that's better than adoption. To believing that is better than adoption is twisted.
A bit.
So down here it says, these data include 2,971 children with same-sex parents and over 1 million children with different sex parents followed from birth. The results indicate that children raised by same-sex parents from birth perform better than children raised by different sex parents in both primary and secondary education. That's what this from the American Sociological Review. School outcomes of children raised by same-sex parents. Evidence from administrative panel data. So there's that. We'll go here. That's it. That's what I just showed you.
You're saying twisted. He's just saying the conservative Catholic viewpoint. I just want to keep pointing that out because it's not localized in Matt Walsh. If you're really conservative Catholic, those are core beliefs that you're supposed to have. I mean, you don't have to do it to be Catholic. That's kind of fun.
And if there's ever, if there was ever a category in life where I think it's totally okay just to speak in the most general terms, it's when it comes down to the lives of individual children and their entire futures. Who has time to specifically look into every case when we have all these little rugrats piling up around us? Am I right?
It's like the trouble with tribbles, Jimmy.
How about my body, my choice? How about we let the kids choose? How about we let the kids go, hey, do you want to go live with Glenn Greenwald? Or do you want to stay in the orphanage? Or do you want to keep getting passed around to 39 different foster homes? How about that? How about we let the kid choose?
I don't think that's
Daniel Lewis says, Glenn, dude, you can't use studies show with your audience. We all stopped paying attention to that 5 years ago. Glenn says, Walsh is the one who claimed that studies show kids suffer gravely from being raised by same-sex couples. He's the one who created that metric. I just posted that in response. There are many others, but I agree. That's not a dispositive argument. And then Michael... And Michael Tracy says, one can believe that heterosexual marriages offer unique advantages without believing that the state should prohibit same-sex adoptions and require that children remain in foster care rather than be adopted by same-sex couples, which is Walsh's position. And here, you want to know how great being a foster kid is, or being without a guardian, like in an adoption? Let's listen to what Dr. Fauci did to those kids. You want to hear how great it was? RFK is going to tell you.
Tony Fauci made sure that none of those kids had guardians, which is illegal. And then he hid what he was doing from the boards. He took foster homes in 6 states and he turned them over to the pharmaceutical industry. You know, there's videos of these children, an old BBC documentary that will make you cry. I promise you cannot look at these without weeping. One of these kids, a 12-year-old who's trying to protect the 8-year-old, and he has a tube in his stomach. And Celia Farber, who's this amazing researcher who worked on this chapter for me and did a lot of the original research on it, she actually went up to Hawthorne, New York, to the Gates of Heaven Cemetery. She found the cemetery where Fauci was disposing of the corpses of these children who died in his illegal experiments. She found an open pit. It was actually covered by an astroturf carpet. And she opened the astroturf carpet and she saw hundreds and hundreds of tiny little coffins stacked haphazardly upon each other, because these are children who have no parents and nobody was there to protect them.
So that's what happens to kids with no guardians.
Yeah.
Would you rather have your kid having Glenn Greenwald as their parent than being experimented on by Dr. Fauci? Because that's exactly what they did. And they killed him.
Fauci's a Jesuit, by the way. So is Matt Walsh. Fauci's a Jesuit. Matt Walsh. That thing where you have kids being trafficked, that's an old institution. And I think that Matt Walsh, because of not the psychological reason you said, certainly, but because he's Catholic, they've been trafficking kids forever. That's what they're known for doing all over the world. Why would they have those positions?
Just to let you know, one more thing I just found. Did you know that a spoonful of sugar helps the radioactive oatmeal go down? What? What are you talking about? This is real. The Fernald State School, originally called the Massachusetts School for the Feeble-Minded, housed mentally disabled children along with those who had been abandoned by their parents. And so what did they do to them? The conditions at the school were brutal. Staff deprived boys of meals, forced them to do manual labor, and abused them. Boys who lived there after being abandoned by his family, was eager to join the science club. He hoped the scientists in their positions of authority might see the mistreatment and put an end to it.
If they have a science club at a home for the feeble-minded, don't join that club.
Do you know what they did? They fed them radioactive Quaker Oats.
That came out years ago. I was in high school when that came out.
When Fred Boyce and dozens of other boys joined the science club at Ferndale State School in 1949, it was more about the perks than the science. Club members scored tickets to Boston Red Sox games, trips off the school grounds, gifts like Mickey Mouse watches, and lots of free breakfast. But it wasn't an ordinary school. And the free breakfasts from the science club weren't your average bowl of cereal. The boys were being fed Quaker oatmeal laced with radioactive isotopes.
Science.
Radioactive traces. Science. That's science. So that's what they do to kids who don't have guardians.
Feeble-minded, and you have a science club. What else would that mean besides you're going to experiment on these kids?
Jimmy, just so you know, Los Angeles County has confirmed it will pay record $4 billion to settle nearly 7,000 claims of horrific child abuse related to their juvenile facilities and foster care homes over a period of decades.
So that's better than living with Glenn Greenwald? That's psychotic. And intuitively, I know that what Matt Walsh is doing is stuffing down the gay impulse in his shadow. There's nothing else. That's all that is. That's a guy who got a boner watching wrestling when he was a kid. And so that's where that comes from. Because that's mental. You'd rather have your kid. What was it? How much? $4 billion?
$4 billion.
So you'd rather have kids grow up like that than grow up with Glenn Greenwald? That's beyond psychotic.
Jimmy, first of all, I don't understand. Like, you don't want them exposed to homosexuality, but that invariably what happens to them when you put them in foster care, and not in a way where it's two people. Like,
who do you think works?
What's the idea behind that?
Who do you think works in orphanages? Right? You don't think that just like in Boy Scout clubs and Catholic schools, they're filled with predators.
Wherever their children
are, that's where predators are.
And not adult gay on gay. Adult attacking a child, the worst one that for some reason is considered less bad in certain churches, most of them.
Yeah. I was attacked by a gay priest. I know what it's like.
Well, he's a pedo.
I was attacked by a gay priest.
Not just gay.
By a pedo. Right. That has nothing to do with being gay. Pedophiles are straight and gay and all type. That has nothing to do with their being gay or straight. That doesn't make you a pedophile.
The attacking a child does.
Attacking the child. So I just intuitively know that that's what Matt Walsh is doing.
And all the adults in that church that you attended wanted to shut all the kids down.
So this guy, his name was Father Holohan, and we called him Father Happy Hands. And if the parents caught you calling him that, you would get in trouble. They didn't go, hey, I wonder why all the kids call him Father Happy Hands. They never said. They're like, oh, because just like Matt Walsh, I don't want to deal with the gay. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with molestation. Let's just tell the kids, shut up.
That's how they mind control peasants.
Yeah.
Irish peasants.
Come see us live in Los Angeles, Buffalo, Toledo, Montreal, Ottawa, Glasgow, Manchester, Belfast, Dublin, London, Liverpool, Birmingham. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.